Hey everyone, so the first thing I'm gonna do after I moisturize and prime is apply my foundation. This is the Wet n Wild foundation. I'm using two shades. The first one is Nude Ivory and the second one is Soft Beige, and I mix them together because I'm kind of in between. I will say this foundation does run a little pinker than I would like, and I'm not pink, so I don't think I'm going to continue to use it, but it is an option. It's only about $5. The moisturizer and primer that I used are the Wet n Wild Coverall Primer, and the moisturizer I used is the Clean and Clear Dual Action Moisturizer. It's oil free and it has a little bit of salicylic acid in it, which helps to keep my skin pretty clear. Here I'm using the Real Techniques blending sponge to just blend in the foundation. I will say this foundation kind of dries down really quickly, so if you don't blend fast enough, it'll be a little bit more difficult later on. So like I said earlier, this is the second shade, which is the Soft Beige, and I'm just applying it right on top. I like to apply it on top versus mixing it like on the back of my hand, just because I feel it makes the coverage a little higher. This is by no means a full coverage foundation. I would consider this sheer to medium. If you have a lot of acne, I don't think you're gonna like this foundation really at all. It has a nice finish, but the coverage is just not super duper great, which is kind of another reason why it's not my favorite foundation. But the second coat does kind of give it a little bit more coverage if that's what you're looking for. And I'd just like to apologize for the lighting issue. Everything is kind of showing up a little bit weird, not necessarily true to color. I don't know what was going on. Everything looked fine, and now that I'm looking at it, it doesn't look as good. I really should figure that out. So if everything looks a little wonky, that's why. So here I'm starting off with the Milani Retouch and Erase Light Lifting Concealer in the shade Light. Now I really like the product that's inside the tube, but I absolutely hate the applicator. It reminds me of the Maybelline Instant Age Rewind applicator, which is like that weird sponge tip. And this one, it just squirts product out, and it's too much sometimes and it's not enough. But the product itself is pretty good. I like it, and for my oily skin, it lasts me all day. And now I'm just blending this into my skin with my Real Techniques sponge. This concealer blends out very, very easily. It's just really creamy, and it sinks into the skin really nice, and it does sit well on top of the Wet n Wild foundation, but I found that it sits a little bit better on top of the Revlon Color Stay, which so far is my go-to foundation. Excuse my ugly faces while I blend this. I don't know how to blend stuff around my eyes elegantly, but you can see the coverage is pretty good. I would say it's medium buildable, so you could definitely get, complete full coverage out of it. Definitely, for sure, 100%. Ignore the ugly faces. I'm so sorry. So now I am beginning to shape out my brows. I am using the Rimmel Brow This Way powder product, and I just begin by outlining the bottom of my eyebrow and making sure it's a very clean line and making sure that they're both as even as I can possibly get them. So now I'm defining the tail end of my brow, and my eyebrows grow kind of weird in this area. I don't really have a lot of hair there, and no matter how much I just let my brows grow out, it just doesn't seem to happen. But this product creates a very nice tail and arch area for me since my brow hairs are so thin. So you know, I like it for that. Now onto the top. The top's really straightforward, just make a straight line and kind of hope for the best. And now I am just filling them in using the same product and just a stroking motion instead of like a scribbling with a crayon motion, because I do like to keep my natural hairs showing through, and that's why I use the medium shade instead of the dark shade, even though my hair is a very dark brown naturally. I like this technique better because it kind of helps my very thin eyebrow hair show through so they don't look so fake. Now for the front, I always start at the very bottom of my eyebrow and work my way to the top because it creates that very gentle fade, and it also helps to distribute the product a little bit better so there's not such a harsh line at the bottom. So the next step that I do is I take some concealer on the back of my hand and I clean up the brow just to get the sharpest line possible, because I do like a pretty defined brow but not drawn on. I'm not a fan of the whole drawn on like Instagram brow trend, so I like to get it clean, but I also like to let my natural hairs shine through. I totally got concealer all in my eyebrow. I know it's not showing up, but I coated all of the hairs somehow. I don't know. So I had to go back in and redefine that line. It was tons of fun. So now what I'm doing is setting my entire face with the Revlon Color Stay pressed powder in the shade Light. And now I'm baking with the Coty Airspun powder in translucent, and I'm just packing that on with my still damp Real Techniques sponge. And I like to bake my under eyes, my chin, my nose, and a bit onto my forehead because I do have oilier skin and I find that this helps my makeup last all throughout the day. Now onto the eyes. The first step is to apply some eyeshadow primer, and I'm using the Urban Decay Eyeshadow Primer Potion in Original. Sometimes I also use some concealer, or you could even use a face primer if you don't have access to an eyeshadow primer. I find that they all kind of work the same, but if I had to pick an eyeshadow primer, it would definitely be the Urban Decay one. Now the next step is I take some of that Coty Airspun powder and I use it to set my eye from crease to brow bone, leaving the lid unprimed so I can get the most pigmentation on the lid. So after I've primed my eyes, I'm going to dust off the bake and make sure you get all of it so you don't have a white cast left onto your face. So here comes the not so fun part. Here I'm applying some clear tape to create a very sharp line, and I know you're not really supposed to do this, but if I'm trying to create something that's kind of dramatic, kind of big, and I need a really sharp line, I'm gonna use the tape. You could just clean everything up with concealer, but I find that this makes everything look a whole lot neater, and honestly, it's a little bit easier. So for my transition shade, I am taking the shade Safe Word from the Jeffree Star Androgyny palette. This is kind of a tan neutral color, and I'm just going to apply that all over the crease, and I'm going to drag it out all the way to the edge of the tape and a little bit into the inner corner of my eyes, since I want my eyes to be really dramatic and a little bit smoky in the crease. The next color I'm taking is Military. This is exactly what it sounds like. It's an army green, and it's very pigmented, and all of the shades that I'm using are matte, just in case you were wondering. Everything I'm using is a matte shade. You could also do this with shimmery shades, but I prefer mattes for this. And I'm just taking a flat brush and packing on the color and getting a lot of fallout. These are really great quality shadows. They blend out very easily. They're very soft, easy to work with, but there is quite a bit of fallout, and I know the Anastasia Modern Renaissance palette's the same. Everything's very pigmented, very nice, but there is a lot of kickback, so be careful of that. You may want to do your eyes first if you're a little bit inexperienced, but the color payoff is just fantastic. The next color I'm taking is Poison. This is a darker teal color. It's kind of got a gray undertone, and I'm applying this to more of the center of the lid, and I'm blending it in with Military. I'm doing the same packing, blending kind of motion instead of just like rubbing back and forth. Poison is, extremely pigmented, like I said. It's a little bit difficult to blend, but that's just because darker shadows are sometimes a little bit harder to make, but again, the color payoff is just fantastic. I know the shadows are showing up patchy on camera, but I promise they aren't, and I am having a little bit of a dry eye situation, so it's just kind of clinging to the skin patches. I know that sounds awful, but I promise when my eyes are normal, these are just absolutely beautiful. I think the weather change has made my skin dry, so that's why they look a little bit weird, but they aren't. This palette is definitely one that I think everybody should have. If you're looking for a more dramatic type of look, it's perfect. The next color I'm using is called Swallow. This is a navy blue. Again, it's matte. And I'm applying this all the way out to the tape, and I'm gonna kind of create a wing with it while I'm blending it into Poison. Again, this color is a little bit difficult to work with, but that also has to do with my dry eyelid situation. Again, it's very frustrating, but I promised a video. So here we are working with it. Again, very, very pigmented. There's a little issue with some fallout, but I think it's 100% worth it for the color payoff that you're getting. So I used the same packing motion just to get it onto my eyelid, but once you get a little bit further in and you dust off some of the fallout, you can go back in and layer. These products do layer together very well, so you can always go back and build up the color if you aren't 100% satisfied with how one layer of the color looks. You can definitely add more to intensify it. So next I'm going to take a little bit more of Safe Word and just kind of smoke out the crease a little bit more and kind of blend the other three colors together in the crease so that most of the focus is on the eyelid. Now we're going to remove the tape, which is just so satisfying to finally peel this stuff off. It's much more comfortable to have it off than on. Now take a brush and just brush away any extra fallout. So now I'm taking Military on a square kind of flat brush, and I'm blending it underneath my eye from the inner corner to about a third of the way in. And what you want to do is focus most of the product on the lash line and then smoke it out the lower that you go so it's not such a harsh line. And I'm also doing the same for Poison, again focusing it mostly on the lash line and blending the further down that you go. With Swallow, it can be a little bit more intense. I like the outer bits of my eye to be a little stronger than the rest of them, and I am going to connect them together so it is a continuous kind of navy blue all the way around the outside. And again, just make sure you really do blend it though, because you don't want to have a super harsh line underneath your eye, especially for glasses. Sometimes it can make your eyes be brought down, like it drags them down. So just keep that in mind when you are blending. So the next step is to tight line your eyes, which I did off camera because I really couldn't get a very good angle and I just kept stabbing myself. So after you tight line, curl your eyelashes and apply some mascara. Here I'm using the CoverGirl Super Sizer Mascara in the shade Very Black. I love this mascara. It definitely helps to lengthen and kind of separate my eyelashes. There can be a little issue with clumping, but again, this is a really good drugstore mascara. Another one that I like to use is the, I believe it's called the Rocket Lash from Maybelline. I also love that one. And you just want to apply generous coats of mascara to your top and bottom eyelashes. And the reason I say generous for people who wear glasses especially. I can't wear fake eyelashes because they always hit my glasses and it has this funny like windshield wiper effect. So if you can wear fake eyelashes, then please put them on, but I can't, so I definitely like to apply lots of mascara to build up my eyelashes so they're visible behind my glasses. The next step after the eyes is to apply bronzer or contour, either one. Here I'm using the e.l.f. bronzer, and I'm using a Sonia Kashuk number 115 brush from Target. I like this brush more for powder than I do foundation, because with my foundation it makes it look a little streaky and I'm just not a fan, but for powder it just buffs it into the skin very effortlessly and very easily. Now I'm applying blush. This is the Wet n Wild Color Icon blush in the shade Mellow Wine. I wanted to avoid anything with any shimmer because I wanted my eyes to be the ones that had all the attention, not my cheeks. And now it's time for the most exciting part, highlight. Here I am using the Anastasia Beverly Hills Moonchild highlighting palette, and the shade that I'm using is Star, which is an insanely reflective, insanely metallic, silvery highlight. I didn't want to use the green or the blue in there since they weren't the same type of green or blue, but the silver definitely packs a punch. I'm also taking some of Star and I'm highlighting the inner corners of my eyes pretty intensely because, again, I do wear glasses and there is an issue with shadow from the glasses being cast onto my face, so I do like an intense brow highlight and an intense inner corner highlight. Now after I've done all my powder, I like to gel my eyebrows. This is the e.l.f. eyebrow gel in clear, and it's not anything watery or clumpy or gross. It just sets the brow and it makes them stay in place all day, especially if you have oilier skin. I think you'll really, really like this. After I've set my eyebrows, I'm going to set my face, and this is the Wet n Wild Photo Focus setting spray, and just a couple pumps of this will keep my makeup from getting oily prematurely. Definitely a favorite, and I like to go back over my highlight just to re-intensify it, make it super poppin'. Poppin' highlight is the way to go. Moving on to lips, I'm applying my favorite chapstick, which is linked below. And now I'm lining my lips with the Wet n Wild lip liner in the shade Chestnut. This is very creamy, very pigmented, very easy to work with, and bonus, it's only $1, and you can get it at any drugstore or your local grocery store or wherever that they sell Wet n Wild. Now, the lipstick I'm taking is a matte lipstick from NYX, and this is the shade Natural. This is such a creamy pigmented lipstick. I love it, and it was only about $6. And this is the finished look. I hope you guys enjoyed watching this video. All products will be linked below, just in case you wanted to buy any of them. This is not sponsored. I don't get any money from this. Just wanted to make it a little bit easier for you guys. Hey guys, this is the finished look. I hope that you enjoy this tutorial. I hope that it's useful, and I know it's pretty dramatic for every day, but I usually walk out of the house like this anyway, like with crazy makeup, so it's not that weird for me. Let me know if you liked it, if you want to see more. I am going to be doing more tutorials using this palette. There's going to be a couple more coming up, so stay tuned for that, and like, subscribe, leave some comments below of some other stuff that you guys want to see. Follow me on social media, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!